Your first news of the night starts right now. This is West Dakota Fox News at 9.
Yesterday, a suspect was arrested for the murders of 4 people at RJR Maintenance and Management in Mandan on Monday, thanks to a joint effort by multiple law enforcement agencies and the community. 44-year-old Chad Isaac, a chiropractor in Washburn, was charged with 4 counts of AA felony murder after being accused of shooting and stabbing the 4 victims. Surveillance footage puts him at the scene of the crime and shows him stealing a company vehicle. A knife and gun were recovered at his home at a trailer park in Washburn that's managed by RJR. The motive is still unknown. Well, Isaac showed no emotion during his 15-minute initial hearing this afternoon. Judge James Hill read off the charges, including for the murder of Robert Faulkner, Adam Fuhrer, and Bill and Lois Cobb. He also faces charges of burglary, concealment within a vehicle, and unauthorized use of a vehicle. The state's attorney asked for a $1 million bond, while Isaac's attorney asked for a bond of $100,000.
There has been a considerable public outcry, and for good reason in this case already. And there's concerns for the safety of the individuals in the public, but there's also concern for the safety of the individuals at RJR.
Bail was set at $1 million, and if posted, he's required to stay in Burleigh, Morton, and McLean counties. RJR employees paid tribute to their own today. There were laughs and tears as owner Robert Faulkner's wife, Jackie, described her husband as well as Adam Fuhrer and Bill and Lois Cobb, and how much they'll be missed. She says they would have appreciated how everyone has come together.
Not only did we lose an owner and irreplaceable employees, we lost sons, daughter, husbands, fathers, brothers, grandfathers, grandmother, sister, loving wife, mother, and some of our closest friends.
There will be a joint memorial service on Tuesday at 11 a.m. at the Bismarck Community Church. While the RJR family grieves, the small town of Washburn is coming to grips with what happened. Many find it shocking and frightening that a business owner, neighbor, and U.S. Navy vet was capable of doing something so horrific. Neighbors saying he mostly kept to himself. A childhood friend saying this hits very close to home.
Straight A's on this basketball team, everything. I mean, I would have never, ever thought this of him.
The community continues to pray for everyone affected. In the rush to share information about the arrest on social media, some people misidentified the suspect. Stephen Nagel and Eric Isaacson were both shown online instead of Chad Isaac. Fortunately, they didn't stay up long. Nagel says he commends Mandan police for posting information about the mistakes before things got out of hand.
It's too bad that they had to go and clean up other people's mess, right? Like, my initial thought was, like why don't people think about things before they go and start just throwing stuff out there?
Isaacson says he's grateful for a strong community. Both men say they hope the victims' families have space to heal. Investigators have a very deliberate process when dealing with a homicide. Jordan Verdadero met with the recently retired Bismarck police chief, and with over 30 years of law enforcement, he has extensive experience in the field.
There are many steps that go into an investigation, especially cases with multiple homicides. Dan Donlin, retired police chief, says the first is the safety of the responders and the public, and many things go through the responders' heads.
Unless you could tell right away by walking in, did they walk in? Did the officers walk in on this incident now? Did the person who called in, did they walk in? Where are they? Are they in danger? Is the perpetrator, if it was obvious this was a homicide, is the perpetrator or perpetrators still there in the building?
Donlin says once an officer sees they have a crime scene, it's about locking down the area and calling in the resources to process and move the investigation forward.
But each case has to be decided on its own. And it was very little information coming out at first, but that's important because, one, he's being transparent to inform the public as much as he can without jeopardizing that investigation, without jeopardizing any evidence that may be out there that they hope to find days, months down the road, yet inform the public.
The citizens were giving us some very good leads to follow up.
Donlin says Ziegler and his team is doing everything they should to keep the integrity of the investigation, even after the public constantly criticized the little information given.
The investigation is still early. There is still so much to do to tie in a motive, what's the reason.
Donlin says he's very proud of the Mandan Police Department and the other supporting agencies. In Bismarck, I'm Jordan Verdadero reporting for your news leader.
Well, Kevin, it's been a very tough week for everyone. Is there sunshine in our future, I hope?
Well, yes, there is, but we may have to wait until Sunday, Anna, because tomorrow we're going to have cool conditions because of the clouds and probably a good amount of fog, even widespread here for tomorrow, and that might take several hours after sunrise to at least alleviate somewhat, but the clouds are probably going to remain. Sky tracker Doppler radar not tracking much in North Dakota, maybe a little mist, but thunderstorms west of Sioux Falls. For us, it's cloudy, and again, we'll see that potential for fog on the increase late into the night. A little bit showing up on area radar network here, but some of which not reaching the ground. If anything, it's just some mist. Easterly winds here at the surface, thanks to high pressure near or north of Winnipeg, with the upper level winds blowing in from the west toward the east. So we are going to see a cool day tomorrow, a chance for showers, maybe a rumble of thunder, no severe weather, and then widespread 60s, Anna, for Sunday as the winds become westerly. That helps dry the atmosphere out. I've got more coming up later.
All right, thanks so much, Kevin.
Yeah.
Well, Bismarck staff and commissioners are working on a new strategic plan for the city and are asking for the residents' input. They announced a new program, the Call for Projects, which they'll open up once or twice a year going forward. You can submit ideas for projects the city should tackle, big or small, at bismarcknd.gov by May 31st. Submissions will go through a review and scoring process, and some could be funded by the city. Although the waters have receded in some areas of Morton County, a flood emergency has been declared, but it still has to be ratified by the county commission. The declaration will give the county access to a $500,000 fund to help rebuild infrastructure damage from the high waters.
Roads, eroded roads, and there's some minimal damage to the levee that would fall under public assistance funding, and then there's some significant debris.
Damage estimates exceed $100,000, and staff will have a more precise number next week. And Senator John Hoeven has been adamant about ensuring the U.S. Army Corps helps North Dakota prevent flooding. This week, he met with the Corps commander to discuss their flood management plan. Hoeven pointed out that the Missouri is high, and there's still a lot of snowpack entering the system. Plus, it could still rain or snow. He said in a release that he's been assured that Fort Peck, Lake Sakakawea, and Lake Oahe all have adequate capacity to prevent flooding in the north. Senator Hoeven also secured Energy Secretary Rick Perry's commitment to come see North Dakota's projects to develop carbon capture and separation technologies for fossil fuels and renewable energy, and to help with the permitting needed for the infrastructure. UND's Energy and Environmental Research Center and partners are working on post-combustion technology in Project Tundra and helping Red Trail capture CO2 to export to states with low carbon fuel standards. Perry says we have great potential for an all-of-the-above energy strategy.
The energy production in North Dakota can be stunningly powerful for the United States.
Well, it's an economic win, it's an environmental win, and it's a national security win, but we've got to get to commercial viability.
Well, the legislature has voted to repay more than $200 million to funds shorted by dedicated money from oil tax revenue on the Fort Berthold Reservation. The bill would put $64 million back into the Common Schools Trust Fund and an extra $10 to $12 million into another fund for water projects until all $128 million is repaid. The move is expected to avoid a lawsuit. Land Commissioner Jody Smith says she can't imagine it getting to that point based on how gracious the legislative body has been thus far, which she attributes to the state's citizens.
I know there are a lot of people across the state who called into their legislators and expressed their interest and really what they wanted to see what happen. And I truly believe that this is why there is such a change in the discussion up here.
And for decades, county social service funding was linked to your property taxes, which the state let counties set. Now that legislators approved a bill letting the state take control of social services, North Dakotans will get a tax break. Among other changes, North Dakota will now have 19 human service zones, giving people access to services anywhere in the state, not just the county they live in. It keeps service locations open and moves money based on the need in an area. The Department of Human Services says this will be a long process.
So it's also a matter of managing expectations, because this will really be a evolutionary redesign. It's not going to be revolutionary in terms of its timing.
The Senate is expected to agree with these changes. If you're going to shave your head anyway, why not have some fun with your hair now? John Salling shows us how one Brave the Shave team is going all out.
Rosemary Heath and her great-granddaughter agreed to have matching hairstyles to support those with cancer.
Everybody in their family has cancer somewhere along the line. And if we can't help them, who can? You know, and little kids don't need cancer. They've still got a life to live.
And so this time I got nervous, but like as soon as it's done and over with, I'm gonna be happy.
They're just two of the more than 50 members of Pansy's Peeps, a team started 4 years ago by Dr. Timothy Ponzagra to raise money with some colorful self-expression.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a surgeon, and so if people see me with normal hair and then they wake up and see me with different hair, they get that perplexed look on their face.
The team dyes and styles their hair in the final days before shaving it all off. And Dr. Panzagra says the team triples or quadruples its fundraising in that time. Rosemary and Morgan say they're excited for another reason as well.
All the memories.
I guess so, memories. Because I wouldn't do it if it wasn't for her.
So if you see a tiger or a peacock at Brave the Shave, you'll know they're one of Pansy's Peeps. In Bismarck, I'm John Salling for your news leader.
You can support the team by going to bravetheshave.net and searching for Pansy's Peeps. Well, coming up, a family thought their long-lost loved one was home, but those hopes were dashed.
And in Minot, we've got visibility is not too bad now, but fog is coming later tonight and some mist. Your forecast coming up.
It's devastating. Yeah. It's like reliving that day all over again.
A family heartbroken after an imposter pretended to be Timothy Pitson, who went missing in Illinois in 2011 when he was just 6 years old. Yesterday, a boy found wandering in a town in Kentucky claimed he was Pitson and had escaped his captors after 8 years. But a DNA test identified him as 23-year-old Brian Reaney. Reaney's brother says he's been in and out of jail since he was young and has Asperger's syndrome and bipolar disorder. But that doesn't excuse what he did.
That's just going to stigmatize that syndrome as, oh, they're going to break the law and go out and get in trouble, but that's not the case.
Reaney's charged for lying to a federal officer. Well, after a week of going back and forth about closing the southern border, President Trump took a trip down to Calexico, California to see the situation for himself. During a roundtable today, he said our country is full, and he expects 400 miles of a border wall to be complete in 2 years. Camila Bernal has the latest.
There is indeed an emergency on our southern border. It's been loud and clear.
President Donald Trump paying a visit to the southern border Friday, a week after threatening to shut it down.
Mexico, of the last 4 days, has done more than they've ever done.
Now saying he believes Mexico is following through on his demands for tighter security.
They're apprehending people now by the thousands and bringing them back to their countries, bringing them back to where they came from.
While the president has left open the possibility of closing the border down the road, he says he can keep the pressure on Mexico in other ways.
If they continue that, everything will be fine. If they don't, we're going to tariff their cars at 25% coming into the United States.
But Democrats argue Trump's threats to close the border only make the situation worse.
Every time he talks about sealing the border, it produces a surge.
Friday's trip to California comes after a bruising battle with Democrats over funding a wall along the southern border. 20 states filed a motion Thursday for a preliminary injunction to stop the use of federal funds for construction of the wall after the president declared a national emergency. But the president insists a wall is a necessity. In Calexico, California, I'm Camila Bernal reporting.
Well, protesters were quick to gather, letting the president know that they're against the wall. But others in the crowd were there to support President Trump.
Tell them to close the border. We've got to get Congress's attention, and if we have to suffer some economic hardship, so be it.
It's time for like-minded people to get together and show disapproval of decisions being made.
As Camila mentioned, they're not the only ones that oppose the wall. Attorney General from 20 states have filed a motion asking for a preliminary injunction. They want to stop the federal government from diverting money from other funds. California's Attorney General questioning the president's motives, and the president's counselor has a rebuttal.
Any crisis at the border is of President Trump's own making, whether out of ignorance, cruelty, or a deliberate and self-fulfilling agenda.
It certainly isn't a bluff. You can take the president seriously.
A California district judge will hear their motion on May 9th. Right now, we're going to hear what to expect for our weather these days. Kevin?
One thing they're not experiencing on the border tonight is fog. Well, on the northern border, yes, and overnight we will. But look at this, Jamestown down to 1/2 of a mile visibility, 3-mile visibility in Doubles Lake. Still 10 in Minot, but we will see fog continuing to spread from east to west during the night. Back to Minot we go, where it's not too foggy at the surface, but again, the cloud deck is lowering. The ceiling is getting lower, and it will continue doing so here the remainder of the night, where it's at chilly 38 degrees right now in the Magic City, along with east winds around 10 to 15 miles per hour, 33 in Doubles Lake, 42 in Bismarck, 44 in Dickinson, still 52 for you in Hettinger, 42 in Williston. A little bit of drizzle, some mist also falling with east winds on the order of 10 to 15, maybe 20 miles per hour. Moisture forecast here next couple of days. We don't have a big moisture maker on the way, fortunately. That's really the best news of all. But with these scattered showers tonight and again throughout the day tomorrow and maybe a few rumbles of thunder, we could see pockets really almost anywhere up to about 1/4 of an inch. I know a little bit here showing at about 1/2 of an inch, but it just really depends on if showers reform in the same areas. But by and large, most of us will have between 1/10 and 1/4 of an inch. With high pressure off here toward Ontario, again, that east breeze for tonight and tomorrow, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Fog as well can be expected, but above that, with westerly winds in the mid to upper layers of the atmosphere, moving from west to east here, that's where the rain is falling, and maybe a little mixture here in the morning as well. Not much, really nothing to worry about here in that regard, but we will see some scattered showers moving through the area for Saturday morning. The clouds will remain fairly thick here a majority of our Saturday, maybe a few breaks in southwest North Dakota and eastern Montana. But once the winds become westerly on Sunday, blowing from west to east, that dries out the atmosphere, allowing for sunshine, therefore milder conditions, but it will be breezy, with west winds between 15 and 25 miles per hour. But tomorrow, again, it's going to be kind of a cool, raw day with highs in the 40s and 50s over central North Dakota, 44 in Minot, 50 in Bismarck, 41 in Doubles Lake, 55 in Dickinson, and low 50s for Williston. A scattering of showers, not a washout, but just be mindful it could rain in almost any time. Middle 50s for Dickinson, Bismarck at 46 to 50 degrees, 53 in Williston, and Minot again low to mid 40s. That is about the extent of it. 7-day forecast again with drier air, breezy 65 both Sunday and Monday. Even mild on Tuesday, highs near 60 before a longer stretch of colder weather. Big storm for the Central Plains. I think, though, Anna stays mainly south of us, but it does pull in colder air from the north.
Sounds good, Kevin. Well, is Boeing to blame for 2 deadly plane crashes? Details next. Initial reports were released in the deadly Ethiopian Airlines crash, and they say the crew did everything according to Boeing's emergency procedures. Boeing CEO now issuing a formal apology. Dan Springer has more.
No pilot error. That's the big takeaway from the preliminary findings of the Ethiopian Airlines crash investigation. And that's bad news for Boeing. The company's CEO issuing a direct-to-camera apology after the report was released, promising a new era of accountability and emphasizing the company's ongoing work to fix the plane's anti-stall system, or MCAS, which is suspected of playing a major role in the crash.
Erroneous activation of the MCAS function can add to what is already a high workload environment. It's our responsibility to eliminate this risk. We own it, and we know how to do it.
But experts say the problems with the 737 MAX 8 could go beyond the MCAS, noting the report points out other issues the airline experienced after taking delivery from Boeing.
That they had airspeed indications that appeared erroneous, that there were some odd rolling tendencies that the airplane had, and that showed up as issues.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are now calling for an investigation into Boeing and the federal regulators overseeing certification of the 737 MAX 8. And on Thursday, the first U.S. lawsuit related to the crash was filed. Michael and Nadia Stumo lost their daughter, and they say Boeing and the FAA are to blame.
I stood on that Ethiopian agricultural field with my family, looking at the crater, feeling her. This should not happen to anyone again.
The FAA is also asking Boeing to fix a second software problem concerning flaps and other flight control hardware critical to flight safety. In light of these new findings, Boeing announced it will temporarily cut production rates as it works to fix these issues. Well, they used to annoy each other. Now they're closer than sisters. Their story next. Stanita Burton donated her kidney to Zenora Polk, but they're unlikely friends. They irritated each other as office mates in the Navy, but when Burton came to Polk's rescue after she went into labor at work, it all changed. Burton was thrilled to find she was a match and could save Polk's life. Oh, pretty sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good cause there. All right, tomorrow we've got temps with clouds only in the 40s and 50s. Warmer, though, by the second half of the weekend.
Well, that looks pretty good.
Not so bad.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.